Richie liked to schmooze. So seeing all of you in the foyer together and the challenge of bringing everyone in because you were all reminiscing and talking to each other, that is the most loving tribute that we can give to Richie. Never stop talking about him, sharing the love that made him him and all of the uniqueness of his life. Our rabbis taught that they emphasize that the crown of a good name excels them all. And the book of Kohelet says, Tov Shem Mishem and Tov, a good name is to be treasured above precious oil. Wealth, health, even life passes away, but a good name lives forever. It is this view that the Talmud teaches monuments need not be erected for the righteous, their deeds are their memorials. Richie Sack will be remembered and revered for the kindness he has shown, for the love he's given. For Richie was an example of what it means to be a mensch. And so we begin our service with the 121st Psalm. It's a psalm that bids us to look up to the mountains.
In this time of mourning, we listen to the voice of our sacred scripture that brings us the ever-new message of God's nearness.
Adonai ro'i lo echsal, Adonai binodesh yarbitzeini, al mei menuchot, Yinaleni. Nafshi yishovev, Yancheini b'magelet tzedek, Yancheini b'magelet tzedek, leman shemo. Gam ki elech begeit salmavet lo irara ki ata imadi shivtecha umishantecha hema yinachamuni. Ta'aroch lefanai, Shulchan neged tzorerai, Dishanta vashemen roshi kosi revaya. Chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai, kol yemei chayai, v'shavti beveit Adonai le'orech yamim. Adonai ro'i lo echsal, Adonai ro'i lo echsal.
We read the 23rd Psalm together. Eternal One, you are my shepherd, I shall not want. You make me lie down in green pastures. You lead me beside still waters. You restore my soul. You guide me in paths of righteousness for your name's sake. Even when I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. With rod and staff, you comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup is overflowing. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in your house forever.
23rd Psalm is a beautiful expression of the closeness of a divine watcher. And there's a line, "You guide me in paths of righteousness for your name's sake." Richie was a guide for many, most particularly his sons. And he was a wonderful father. And it's meaningful to call upon Mark and Scott, who are going to share reminiscences of their dear father and the beauty of their relationship.
Okay. So I haven't really had an opportunity to rehearse this at all because there's not a lot of time. So if there's a failure on the delivery, I apologize. It was February 23rd, 2024. This date represents the end of an actual era, the date of passing of Richard Sack. Interestingly, this is the same date his father Charles died 30 years earlier. For everyone, the date of one's death defines the end of one's life, but for our dad, with the way he was and the way he affected so many others, I just feel that his lifetime from start to finish defines an era of sorts. Our dad was known by many, and very often, but not 100% of the time, was loved by that same many. He had a tendency to say whatever he felt without filtration, and this led to many, many moments of brilliance. Some of the descriptions we have heard pertaining to my dad: a true original, fun, energetic, cool, colorful, interesting, classic man, funny guy, one of a kind, and a real smooth dude. He would speak to anyone about anything, regardless of the circumstances. He actually had no boundaries. Sometimes really great, sometimes not so great.
As you guys know, this is not my strength, so we would like to focus today on his performance as a father. However one may have felt about him from day to day, whether you were getting along with him or not, perhaps during a time of disagreement, you would never consider indicting his parenting skills, which were exemplary. A better father you could not find. Truly devoted to his sons and grandchildren, there was nothing he wouldn't do for Mark and I. Absolutely dedicated to us. We flipped throughout our entire lives in all aspects. It was almost a day-to-day, month-to-month, year-by-year parental devotion. Our childhood was filled with great memories, with the sense that he was always teaching and prepare us to be solid citizens. That being said, he had a laundry list of sayings that he created, somewhat a playbook for life for his boys. We now give you some of the insight into our development with Dickey's Bible of Aphorisms.
An aphorism, by definition, is a pithy observation that contains a general truth, such as, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now, these are not all technically aphorisms, but I've been calling them aphorisms for like 35 years, so we'll just kind of keep it that way for now. He had a lot of them, but we're going to try to be somewhat concise by placing them in a top 10 list. Not really in any order, they're not listed chronologically or in order of profoundness or importance, just listed. Number 1, I marched to the beat of a different drummer. This was his way of describing others, but mostly himself, as somewhat quirky, but with that quirkiness working to his advantage. Number 2, heavy is the head that wears the crown. This would be said in circumstances where being in charge has its drawbacks. Mostly he would be referring to himself during times of his making executive decisions for the family, which he would describe as a benevolent dictatorship. So on that one, you got a twofer. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, and our family is a benevolent dictatorship. He loved that one. Number 3, number 7 on his jersey, number 1 in your heart. This was in reference to when I was playing in the Maccabi games in Toronto when I was 14. My t-shirt number was number 7, and that initiated the saying. He went back to this hundreds of times in his life, long after its inception in 1986. Alia jacta est. This is a Latin term that means the die is cast, or the point of no return. He didn't always use it correctly, and sometimes he'd just say it to say it. Interestingly, he did say this to us during his last hospital admission as he was experiencing a significant decline in health, and it turned out that this indeed was used properly at that time. A tennis player, this is number 5, a tennis player without his rackets is just another kid on the block. He said this a lot over the years, and one could say that he was just trying to say always be prepared, although he did have another one for that, which was semper paratus, which literally means always be prepared. So another 2 for on that one. What I think what he was really meaning to say there is, don't forget your rackets again.
Do things right the first time so you don't have to do them over. This was a staple for us and had a lasting effect, and is a really good one for us to install in our own children. I think it was intended to create great work ethic and well quality of the work as well. This can be traced back to the days that Michael and I had a car wash business. We had a nice thing going of washing our parents' cars, our parents' friends' cars, and he wanted them done with pride. If you can dance for me, you can dance for anyone. Once again, a staple for Dickie, and used very consistently, both of us. The intended message for this one is, he set a high bar for performance, and if we passed his test, we were good enough to do it in the real world. Once again, an overarching theme that his teaching and parenting was going to pave the success for his boys. Save and invest. As a money manager by profession, this is a steadfast lesson for financial stability. We had a lot of conversations regarding money and things that were tangential. I remember a conversation in my late teens at the local McDonald's when he and I discussed on what the rate of investment return was and how important of a lesson it was. We also talked the same day about me starting my IRA. Similar subsequent conversations referred to compound interest and how important it was to use time as your advantage to create financial stability. Number 9, team effort. The derivative of this one came from when we were on a family cruise and stopped in Ocho Rios, Jamaica. We were just getting off the ship. We were going to walk through a local town area. Before we got off the ship, he huddled us up and said, "When I call it team effort, we stay together." This at the time was intended for our safety, but I think as we grew up and utilized the different ways to solidify his dream that we were really Team SAC, and he was the captain. Life is for the living. This is one that came up much later in life, as he was losing a couple friends and relatives. I think it helped him rationalize loss and wanted to teach us, those he shared, that it was okay. Then life goes on when you lose somebody you care about.
So you think that's done, but really I have another 11 honorable mentions. Some are truly aphorisms, while others are just bizarre statements. Number 1, does it have a hint of whimsy? He would say this during nights out for dinner with Scott and any of his wine aficionado friends. They would be discussing what type of wine to order, how they would describe it to each other, and how they would inquire about it, the wine, to the waiter. Once ordered, when the waiter would open the bottle for Scott to taste, Dad would say, "Well, does it have a hint of whimsy?" This was his quirky way of saying, enough with the highfalutin wine tasting nonsense. Number 2, don't let the tax tail wag the investment dog. This means don't make stock purchase or sale decisions based on tax gains, gains taxes. Do what you think is right. Number 3, I have the sword of Damocles hanging over my head. This was said during times of high pressure and the concern of impending doom. Number 4, you are hoisted on your own petard. This would refer to someone being the cause of one's own demise. Number 5, it was done deliberate. He would say this angrily when he felt wronged by someone in the context of it really being a mistake or a misunderstanding, like, this was not an accident, this was done purposefully. He would say, it was done deliberate. Number 6, he who lived by the sword dies by the sword. Lots of different ways to use this one, but he used it in the context of tennis typically. I believe he felt as though if my strengths on the court were not more diverse, like that ultimately the weakness would be exposed and I would be subject to failure. That is, you can't just rely on your serve and forehand and expect to be successful. Good players will exploit your weaknesses. Number 7, he who fights and runs away shall live to fight another day. It's self-explanatory, and I feel like he found a way to utilize this one in tennis too. I just don't really know how it applied. Number 8, discretion is the better part of valor. Make good, cautious, calculated choices rather than act bravely or hastily and perhaps stupidly. He's got $1 million hands and 10-cent feet. He used this phrase to describe me on many, many, many occasions during my junior tennis career. I think the last time he saw me play, which was like 10 years ago, my teammate, Danny Sternfield, came up to me and said, "Your dad just said you got $10 million hands, or $1 million hands and 10-cent feet." And I was like 41 years old. Color me out. This was a good one, and he would say it angrily, like, "Color me out." We would try to schedule yearly trips to Vegas with him, which he totally loved, and we all loved it. But he would be really hardcore about finalizing our plans to the trip way in advance, like 6 to 9 months in advance, and they were yearly trips. So crazy amounts of time in advance. And the problem was we had no idea when we would be able to go exactly, the dates, where we would stay, etc., until, it got closer. We each had 3 kids, busy jobs. Scott traveled a lot for work, and so on and so forth. So we wouldn't know how long before the trip he would actually snap. It was usually like 3 months before. If our plans weren't completely set in stone, dates, hotel, dinner reservations, all of it, at some point he would completely blow his top and say something like, "I'm tired of waiting for you guys. I want to look forward to this trip. That's the best part of the trip, just looking forward to it. And I can't do that until everything's taken care of. Forget it. Color me out." Meaning, I'm not going anymore because I'm tired of you dragging your feet. All 3 of us have been saying this for forever after that. No matter what the circumstances, if there was something we didn't want to do or couldn't do, we would commonly and angrily just say, "Color me out." Number 11, tequila sunrise, another Vegas-related one. And I think Evan may have been there for this one, not totally sure. During one Vegas trip, we got in the habit around the crap table of yelling out Chicago area suburbs whenever we were about to throw the dice, like Naperville or, Homewood Flossmoor. Dad saw us at the table and came and played, and when it was his turn to throw, tequila sunrise. And it made no sense, and the crowd went completely bananas. So those were the honorable mentions, but he had so many of them that I didn't feel it was though it was appropriate to end here. So the rest are just in bullet form, little or no explanation, plenty of tennis ones and a couple of movie quotes and just weird things. Don't get me started. Go pound sand. Will you please spare me? If you play your cards right, I'll teach you my serve. That's my dad speaking. Are you sure, Rivka? Are you really sure? That was a quote from the jazz singer. Next time you're feeling all sad and blue, don't expect old Skipper here to put on his big red nose and floppy shoes just pour vu. Anybody know what that's from? The movie Class, 1983, that was Rob Lowe. We operate on a system of rewards and sanctions. Tennis is a game of real estate. If I put a $100 bill at center court, I know who will be there to pick it up. You need to hit the ball with alacrity. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. You have to embrace risk. Into everyone's life, a little rain must fall. The family that does whatever together stays together. The family that shops together stays together. The family that travels together stays together. He would put anything in there. Never give up till the ball bounces twice. Necessity is the mother of invention. I love to hear your dulcet tones every time, not every time, but oftentimes when we were talking on the phone. So good to hear from you. I love to hear your dulcet tones. It's better to be lucky than good. Portia faces life. One time I asked him when I was little what xenophobia was, and he said, fear of xenos. And I will end with one of my personal favorites: a business without advertising is like winking at a pretty girl in the dark.
So the previous was basically the blueprint of how our father lived his life. Mark and I feel that both of our parents were a great team in raising us. They were not always on the same page in other aspects of their lives together, but they ended their commitment going through their journey together. In retirement, his life was pretty simple. His days consisted of being downstairs in his office, between his computer and CNBC blasting in the background, coming up with maybe some traditional or some non-traditional investment choices. He loved watching the action day to day, what was happening on the floor of the stock exchange. It seemed to be the fuel that would get him through the day. A yearly cruise to the Caribbean with our mom, and as long as Mark and I were in frequent communications about each of us, our wives, and our kids, he was pretty content. Oh, and the Chinese food was a must. In almost every conversation, he would inquire the path of our children, that our children was on, and implied that the aforementioned slogans should be introduced to them at the appropriate time the illustration presented itself. The last 2.5 years, after our mom had her stroke, things became much more trying for the four of us. Susabel, what he penned her in college, and I don't even remember her using her real name, was a strength in the latter part of their lives. She ran the show. When she became diminished, that was really tough on him. I picture their reunion as such. My mom's hand on her hip with a smirk/smile saying, "Richie, what took you so long to get here?" Followed by my dad saying, "Susabel, would you just stop nagging me already?" That would be followed by the sharing of a sausage and mushroom pizza, and if my dad got his way, would have anchovies on half.
Didn't you have something?
I never hear.
Oh, so I do mine? Okay.
No, I do mine.
Oh, then do
Yeah. All right, ready?
Big
All right.
pause, dude.
A week ago Tuesday was the last day we spent together. Evan and I went to spend a couple hours with him. When we walked in, he was basically asleep in the bedroom in his own bed. He refused to use the hospital bed we had brought in for him in the family room so he could watch his CNBC. He had told me in his last hospital stay that they had 48 hours to figure out what was wrong with him at that point, and that he was going to be discharged no matter what. No matter what, Scotty, he insisted. He then told me that there was no way he was going to die in a hospital bed. He was thoroughly dedicated to that. He somewhat perked up when he knew we were there. I nudged him a couple times. He sat up. We began engaging in conversations just like old, just like we had done 1,000 times. His thoughts were clear, and his mannerisms were true to Richie. The banter the three of us had back and forth certainly didn't feel like he was going to pass 3 days later. The conversation was fun, and some of the content would be inappropriate for the Bema here at Temple. We really had some great laughs. I think it was therapeutic for the three of us. Not done yet. I asked him if we could get him his favorite hot and sour soup at the Royal Garden. He replied, "That would be great." We went over there, got the soup. This place my father had literally been to 1,000 times. We told the owner who it was for, and he looked at it and he says, "Wow, he really liked this place." We explained that this was probably going to be his last order of soup that he coveted. When we got back and made him a bowl, he inquired about the crunchy noodles. They were not in the bag. He shrugged his shoulder and said, "All right." We did find several bags in the fridge from previous orders. He had several bites, and that's all he could muster. He looked up at me and said, "Scotty, could really use some ice water." I went and got him some. He drank it like it was a humid 90-degree day with the expression of pure satisfaction. And that was it. there was nothing more we could do about it. I'm truly grateful for the last hours we spent together. Like the three of us had done so many times before. Great laughter is the way I want to remember him.
Getting back to the Chinese food, we were kind of in charge of dealing with his bills and whatnot, and I was looking through his credit card statement. He had Chinese food 17 days in a row. I mean, that was one block of Chinese food, but there was, I mean, it was extraordinary.
Always at the same place.
It was extraordinary. And I have one last observation to add. I spent quite a bit of time with Dad, as well as the hospice nurse, after he had physically passed. She asked me if I wanted him dressed for transport before traveling to the funeral home, and I responded yes. I gave her about 15 minutes and went back into the room to be with him. And he was lying there in his sweatpants and one of his all-time classic t-shirts. He had a tendency to wear totally ridiculous and outlandish items of clothing with absolutely no shame. It was just how he rolled. This one was from the late 90s, a bit faded. It was a white t-shirt with a pharmaceutical-type print on the front, like something you'd see on the packaging of a medication, or maybe on its commercial. It was for a generic version of Viagra. The name of the drug was centrally located on the front of the shirt and in large block print. The name of this generic Viagra was titled, does anybody know? Don't say it. Yeah, you guys don't count on this one. The name was Mycoxafalin. And he's lying on the bed with this t-shirt on, dead, awaiting transport to a funeral home. And it was just so Dad. And the hospice nurse who put it on, she's like, I didn't even look at it. I'm so embarrassed. I'm like, no, you don't understand. It's perfect. And I'll say this. He had a very tough last few years with a lot of pain. Loss of function, loss of independence. He was always contorting himself just to get comfortable. Every step was painful for him. You could see it on his face. You could hear it in his voice. And I was just sitting there talking to him. And I noticed when I was looking at him, it became very apparent to me that he looked more peaceful at this moment than he had looked in years. He was fine. His mouth was straight and not turned downward. He wasn't folded up in half with his legs hanging over the side to get more blood flow to his feet. He looked truly content, like, I'm okay, I think I'm good to go now. And as much as I'm gonna miss him, I really feel that this is what he needed.
Thank you, Mark and Scott. You can hear your dad in those aphorisms, as he would say them. They're beautiful reminders of the care that he bestowed upon you and your families. I first met Richie when I arrived to Milwaukee a little over 12 years ago, and it was at the mikveh as someone was converting to Judaism. And Rabbi Shapiro was officiating, and Richie and I were the witnesses. And Rabbi Shapiro knew that he could always turn to his friend Richie to witness, a tradition that I picked up as well. And as Richie made the time when called upon, and was there at many an individual's moment of celebration as they entered into Jewish life. And shortly after the ceremony, Rabbi Shapiro and Richie and I went out for lunch. And we had such a nice time that Richie and I set up a monthly lunch date. First, it was at the Glen Cafe, and then we moved to Appetai, which was one of his favorite places. And one of the things we would talk about over a hot bowl of tom yum soup was the market. As you know, Richie loved the market. And he'd show me papers with numbers and charts, which looked to me like less decipherable than hieroglyphs. But to Richie, it told him a story. And it was a story of value. Where was the hidden value? What did the numbers tell you about this company, and where was it headed? Up, down, sideways? And it didn't take Richie long to hand me a book about Jesse Livermore, a stock trader from the early 20th century that was revered as one of the first day traders. And Richie particularly loved his approach. And one of the quotes that I think of when I think about Richie comes from the dog-eared book he handed to me. It reads, "They say there are two sides to everything, but there is only one side to the stock market, and it's not the bull side or the bear side, but the right side." Richie believed in the right side. He believed in doing what he thought was right, and he clung to the idea that there was a right way to approach a complicated world with certainty. In the markets and in life, Richie didn't just look for value, he believed in values. Values that he passed to his children, and values that he shared with those who he held close. And as a reflection of those values, let me tell you that our discussions, though often starting with the intricacies of finance, invariably circled back to what Richie held most dear, the people in his life. He would talk about his Susabel of blessed memory. He would speak with bursting love for his children and those who his children loved, Scott and Julie and Mark and Amy, all who he adored with a fierce love. And his grandchildren, Emma, Noah, and Ethan, and Jesse, Samantha, and Matthew, who were his absolute pride. And Richie's dedication to his loved ones was the most precious investment he ever made, yielding dividends of love and legacy that will endure far beyond our temporal market. And so we've gathered together this morning to bid shalom to a loving husband and a caring father, a beloved grandfather, a brother, and a special friend. And we've come together today also to bring comfort to those who feel this loss so profoundly, to Richie's family. In this moment of deep loss, our hearts go out to Richie's beloved children. And the passing of your mom last summer was a tremendous loss. And now with Richie's passing, the void feels even more profound. Richie and Susabel were exemplary in their parenting, nurturing and teaching and loving you with unparalleled devotion. And Richie imparted countless lessons, many of those you just heard, not just through his words, though, but through the example of his life. His remarkable work ethic was evidence as he balanced the demands of his profession with the joys of fatherhood. He would immerse himself in his work, delving into reports, navigating the complexities of trading, yet he always prioritized returning home for dinner, whether it was playing catch or a game of street basketball. His time with you was sacred. You were the center of his world, the beacon of joy in his life. And Richie often said, seeing you was always a sight for sore eyes, a testament to the depths of his love and his dedication. And beyond the joys of play, Richie instilled in you the importance of being nurturing parents yourselves, enveloping you in his love and ensuring your childhood was filled with care and affection. He encouraged you to pursue success and financial prudence, but more significantly, to be virtuous individuals, valuing integrity and community contribution over material wealth, to be, in his words, a solid citizen. And perhaps most importantly, Richie cherished the bond between you, aspiring for you not to be just siblings, but best friends. He believed in the power of this connection to sustain you through life's challenges, a dream he was fortunate to see realized. This vision of unity and mutual support is a profound aspect of his legacy. And the memories you created with your father and the lessons he so lovingly imparted are woven into the fabric of who you are. They form an indelible part of your essence, and they continue to guide and inspire you. Richie's spirit, his wisdom, his wit, his love live on through you. It's a lasting tribute to the incredible father that he was. And Richie was truly blessed to know and cherish his 6 grandchildren. And each of you, the essence of your grandfather's spirit finds a path to endure. You are graced with the opportunity to forge distinct bonds with your papa, bonds characterized by love and laughter and the special moments that you shared. And Richie's affection for each of you was as unique as the personalized nicknames he lovingly coined, a testament to the individual connection he nurtured with all of you. And from your earliest days, your papa was a presence, a guardian of your milestones, and a celebrant of your achievements. He was there for the significant events, weaving the fabric of your lives with threads of joy and unity during holidays and family gatherings, and the thoughtful gifts on birthdays or special occasions were just a part of his unwavering commitment to your happiness and success. I vividly recall the pride he held during your simchas, whether practicing an aliyah or reveling in your accomplishments, or even bringing you to Milwaukee so that I can hear how great you were. Richie's pride was boundless. And this past weekend, as Ethan read from the Torah, I have no doubt that Richie, alongside Suzabel, watched over you with immense pride and joy, still smiling down upon you with the same love and affection that they did in life. Richie cherished creating individual moments with each of you, dedicating precious time every summer in Milwaukee for one-on-one connections. And these moments were not just a testament to his love, but were the highlights of his year, deeply cherished and forever memorable. And now as you carry forward into the future, you embody his most profound legacy. It will be through your voices that the tales of your papa's life will be recounted to the next generation. Don't lose those aphorisms. Bring them forward. Share them with your friends and share them with your children. Because Richie's legacy is not just in the past, but in the vibrant stories that you'll share and the lessons that you'll pass down and the love you'll extend just as he did with all of you. And though nothing can replace Richie in the lives of his loved ones, the presence of so many of you here today is a sign of the love and respect you have for him. And I'm certain it brings them comfort. And it's a loving testimony of the place in which you held him and his family in your hearts and the meaning all your lives had intertwined with his. Richie lived a full and meaningful 81 years, and he grew up on the south side of Chicago in the Pill Hill neighborhood, alongside his brother and sisters, Sandra, Fran, and Greg. In Chicago, Richie attended the Harvard School for Boys, but he spent a great deal of time in Milwaukee with his grandparents and was very close with them. Richie made the fateful decision to attend college at University of Wisconsin, transitioning from the formative streets of Chicago to the vibrant campus of the University of Wisconsin. And his journey was marked by a series of pivotal experiences that shaped the man that he would become. There, he studied as an English major. He loved UW and would often talk about walking State Street and the friends that he made there, some who he would connect with and reconnect with throughout his life. Wisconsin was so important to him. It was there that the course of his life was so enriched when he met and fell in love with his Suzabel. It didn't take long for the two to marry and bring Mark and Scott into the world, and the two were wonderful parents dedicated to giving their children a beautiful childhood and a foundation for life. And while his heart found its home with Suzabel and their children, Richie's passion and dedication also thrived in the competitive arena of his professional life, where his diligence and acumen were unmistakable. Richie loved his work. He was consumed by it. He would be in his office, as you heard, watching CNBC all the time. If he answered the phone, he'd say, "Sack family office." Getting up early and going over the reports to prepare for a day of trading. But his family was truly the center of Richie's heart. As you heard, Richie was most certainly an iconoclast who marched to the beat of his own drum. He never really liked to be told what to do. Sometimes he reveled in being what he called himself as a lone wolf, but he also reached out to make and sustain meaningful and long-lasting friendships. He was most certainly an original. I loved it when he would pull up to my house in his Honda 750 after cruising the neighborhood, a content smile on his face, and would say, "Hey, partner." There are many sides to Richie. He was sensitive and had high expectations of friendship. He also was quick to reach out to others when they needed a friend or support. He believed strongly in the golden rule. Richie's individuality and deep relationships were further anchored by his profound connection to Judaism. Richie strongly identified with his heritage. There were many important moments. His son's own B'nai Mitzvah ceremonies where he wept poignant tears. He encouraged his boys to join a Jewish fraternity, Sami. He often spoke in Yiddish terms, and despite a pain in his back, he took great meaning in holding the Torah for Kol Nidre. There's a timeless teaching from Pirkei Avot, the ethics of our fathers. Who is rich, they ask, and they answer, one who rejoices in their portion. Richie's wealth was not measured in the fleeting currencies of the market, but in the enduring values he embraced and the relationships that he cherished. He found true worth in his dedication to his family, his friends, and his community. Richie took satisfaction in his portion, not only finding joy in the blessings of his own life, but also enriching the lives of those around him with his support, wisdom, and love. I felt that support and that friendship, and his legacy, much like the values he lived by, transcends the bounds of time, reminding us that the truest form of success lies in the love we share and the lives we touch. I will miss him. All of us here today will feel the void Richie's passing leaves in our lives, but he will never truly be gone. Richie will live on in the unique memories we have of him and the stories of his life that we will continue to share. And in that way, he has truly gained immortality. Yehi zichrono livracha. May the name and memory of Richie Sack therefore abide among us as an eternal blessing. May the source of peace and comfort to all who mourn among us. And let us say, Amen. Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, yehi shem Adonai mevorach. God has given, God has taken away. Blessed be the name of God. Please take a moment of silence as we remember Richie. May the memory of Richie Sack endure among us as a blessing. In our own time, O God, when we too are called to enter eternity, may we leave this life secure in the faith that in your light we shall see light. In life and in death we cannot go where you are not, and where you are, hope endures. Sustained by this assurance, we invoke your name, Almighty God. Please rise now for El Malei Rachamim.
El Malei Rachamim Shochen B'Hamromim Hametzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShechinah Im kedoshim utehorim kezohar harakia mazhirim et nishmat melech ben Isachar halevi ve'aida shehalecha le'olamo Ba'al harachamim Yastirehu b'seter knafav le'olamim V'yitzror b'tzror hachayim et nishmato Adonai hu nachalato v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar Amen.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Richard Sack, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in the shadow of your wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. There is a beautiful poem that speaks to the nature of life, and our path along it is a destination. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination, but life is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and youth to old age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing. from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness, and back, we pray, to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, from grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, one that Richie took with such great, unique qualities, a love of life and a love of his family. It is a sacred pilgrimage, made stage by stage to life everlasting. Early or late, all must answer the summons to return to the source of being, for we lose our hold on life when our time has come, as a leaf falls from the branch when its day is done. The deeds of the righteous enrich us all as the fallen leaf enriches the soil beneath. The dust returns to the earth, the spirit lives on with God. Like the stars by day, our beloved are not seen by mortal eyes. They shine on forever. Theirs is eternal peace. Let us be thankful for the companionship that continues in a love that is stronger than death. Sanctifying the name of God, we honor the memory of Richie with Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, v'yalmad divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'yimru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'amei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudusha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Damiran b'alma v'yimru Amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min Shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru Amen. Osei shalom b'imromav. Hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us say, Amen. May the source of life, the fountain of all being, open our hearts to compassion and our eyes to wisdom, that we might glimpse in perfect peace and sadness the way of all things. May Richie's memory be for us a blessing, and may we never let the light of his love grow dim in our hearts. May we remember all his worthy and righteous deeds, that his memory be forever bound up in the bond of life. God is our source and our destination, our beginning and our end. May Richie's death awaken us to this truth that the bond of love we shared and share not be severed in sorrow. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. At this time, I'd like to invite Richie's dear children, those who his children love, his grandchildren, his siblings, to pass through the center of our sanctuary as they head to Clearfield Hall, or rather this aisle back here. As they go to Clearfield Hall, where you can greet them and continue to share loving memories of Richie. And as they pass through, I'd like to invite you to say words that are from our tradition, in particular, speaking to them. First, repeating after me in the Hebrew, and then repeating after me in the English. Hamakom,
Hamakom,
Yinachem,
Yenachem,
Etchem,
Etchem,
Betoch,
Betoch,
Sha'ar,
Sha'ar,
Avele,
Avele,
Sion,
Zion,
Yerushalayim.
Virushalayim.
And in English, may God console you
May God console you
among the mourners
among the mourners
of Zion and Jerusalem.
of Zion and Jerusalem.
Now go forth in peace to life.
Now go forth in peace to life.
And this concludes our service. Please join us in Clearfield Hall.